The stage was set for a routine panel discussion, another televised segment, pairing seasoned voices with rising political figures. But no one expected the viral lightning bolt that struck when Denzel Washington and Karoline Leavitt shared the screen. The conversation began with typical civility until Karoline, brimming with confident energy, leaned into a pointed question. "Don't you think Hollywood elites are completely out of touch with everyday Americans?" Denzel.com has ever raised an eyebrow and responded, "That's funny. I was raised by working people, served communities long before the cameras came on, and I don't need a title to know truth. How many neighborhoods have you walked through without a press team behind you?" The room held its breath. Karoline tried to pivot, but the audience knew she'd been outmatched. Not by volume, but by lived wisdom. Karoline attempted to steer the moment back in her favor, leaning into ideological buzzwords. "I just think Americans are tired of being lectured by actors," she said, half laughing. Denzel, unflinching, shot back with the line that would dominate social feeds for days. "No one's lecturing, we're just not pretending to understand." America from a podium while reading cue cards written by donors. The crowd's gasp was audible. Karoline fell silent, blinking rapidly, searching for a rebuttal that never came. She smiled tightly, nodded, and sipped her water, visibly rattled. The exchange, clipped and shared across platforms within hours, was dubbed the masterclass in mic drops by fans and media outlets alike. Denzel didn't gloat. He simply leaned back in his chair, folding his hands. The embodiment of a man who knew the power of saying just enough. As the clip rocketed across the internet, reactions came swiftly and fiercely. Supporters of Karoline Leavitt claimed Denzel was condescending, while the majority praised his ability to dismantle political rhetoric with composure and clarity. The moment transcended party lines. This wasn't about left or right. It was about credibility, presence, and authenticity. Commentators across platforms highlighted the contrast, one person armed with talking points, the other with lived experience. Denzel didn't raise his voice. He didn't interrupt, simply told the truth with the calm of a man who had nothing to prove. Karoline's silence in that moment wasn't just the absence of a comeback, it was the sound of a narrative collapsing. In the days that followed, the clip was replayed on news shows, analyzed by pundits, and even studied in communication courses. Denzel Washington had once again shown that power doesn't always come from shouting down an opponent, can come from listening, speaking plainly, and knowing exactly when to stop talking. Karoline Leavitt may have walked into that room expecting a challenge, but she left with a reminder. If you're going to spar with Denzel Washington, you better bring more than sound bites. By the end of the week. The impact of Denzel Washington's exchange with Karoline Leavitt had morphed from a viral clip into a case study in public discourse. Headlines read like battle summaries. Washington outspeaks Leavitt without breaking a sweat. And silence, Karoline's only reply. Yet beneath the media frenzy was something deeper. Denzel hadn't come to embarrass anyone. Shown up for the applause. What made his words sting and stick was their authenticity. While Karoline wielded buzzwords as weapons, Denzel responded with clarity drawn from decades of observing real life, not just policy sheets. And that contrast was too stark to ignore. Karoline made no official statement after the broadcast, but sources close to her admitted off-record that she had been caught off guard by the tone shift. Meanwhile, Denzel carried on, as he always has, focused, gracious, and unmoved by the clamor. If anything, the incident strengthened his standing as more than a celebrated actor. It reminded the public that he's a man rooted in values, not platforms. He didn't just out-talk his opponent, he outclassed the format entirely. And in a time where shouting often wins the screen, Denzel reminded everyone watching that quiet truth cuts deeper than the loudest noise. In the days that followed, commentators began referring to the moment as the quiet earthquake. Denzel Washington didn't trend because he humiliated anyone. He trended because he exposed a truth without theatrics. Social media users praised the way he didn't just speak to Karoline Leavitt, but through the noise that so often clouds political commentary. It wasn't a comeback. One viral tweet read, "That was a reality check in a suit." Even critics who usually lean toward Leavitt's corner admitted the exchange was a reminder that charisma without depth can only go so far in front of someone who's lived the very stories he speaks about. Asterisk. Karoline remained notably quiet. In the aftermath, no follow-up interviews, no social media rebuttals. Her silence only amplified how thoroughly Denzel had commanded the room. But perhaps the most surprising ripple effect was the conversation that followed, about how we measure authority. Who gets to define out of touch, and what it really means to represent the people? Denzel never claimed to be a politician. He didn't have to. He spoke like someone who sat at enough kitchen tables, walked through enough neighborhoods, and lived through enough reality to see through a rehearsed narrative. And in that moment, with a single pointed answer and unwavering gaze, he reminded everyone that when the truth is spoken calmly and confidently, it doesn't just win the room, it changes it. Asterisk. As media outlets rushed to dissect every second of the now legendary exchange, something unexpected happened. The clip wasn't just viral, it became cultural. TikToks were made, reaction videos were posted, and even classrooms used it to teach the art of calm rhetoric. Denzel Washington, long known for his powerful performances on screen, had reminded the world that his sharpest role might just be himself, measured, principled, and fearless in the face of spin. He didn't clap back, one columnist wrote, stood tall, spoke truth, and let the silence do the rest. The way he handled Karoline Leavitt wasn't seen as an attack. It was a lesson in accountability. He challenged not just her words, but the idea that anyone can waltz into a conversation armed only with buzzwords and walk away unquestioned. Asterisk. Meanwhile, the public began to re-examine how younger political voices like Leavitt approach public dialogue. Her followers defended her, claiming she was ambushed or set up. But the footage told a different story. A guest asked a loaded question, and the recipient Denzel answered it with clarity and poise. No script, no yelling, no meltdown. Just truth, calmly delivered by a man who has spent decades listening more than talking. It was a powerful reminder that real wisdom doesn't chase attention, it commands. And in a media age obsessed with outrage, Denzel Washington's restraint left the loudest impact of all. Asterisk. As the moment continued to ripple through news cycles and social media feeds, it became clear that Denzel Washington had done more than just respond to a provocation. He had redefined the tone of the conversation. In a political and entertainment landscape often driven by performative outrage, his calm but pointed response stood out like a lighthouse in fog. What struck viewers wasn't just what he said, but how he said it. Steady, grounded, and absolutely unbothered by the spectacle around him. He dismantled her without ever raising his voice. One viral post read, "That's what real presence looks like." Karoline Leavitt, meanwhile, faded from the headlines just as quickly as she had entered them, still active, still speaking. But now always compared to the moment she had been publicly, respectfully outmatched. Asterisk. Denzel didn't need to issue a follow-up. He didn't bask in the attention or go on a victory lap. He returned to his projects, his philanthropy, and his quiet leadership. Yet his influence lingered. Shows, talk panels, and political guests alike seemed to pause just a little more before launching into assumptions or platitudes. A shift had occurred, not massive, not declared, but subtle and undeniable. All because one man asked a loaded question, chose not to flinch or fight, but to answer. And in doing so, he didn't just win the exchange, he changed the temperature of the room, the show, and perhaps even the genre. Asterisk.